Elizabeth notices Darcy's civility. He's going out of his way to be polite and civil, and she notices because, and again, that's just who Darcy is. You know, he's not that gruff and awkward guy. Maybe he has those little flashes every now and then, but this is who Darcy really is. And it's not a coincidence that this is all happening in his home. This his home represents him, who he is at his core as a man. And she notices all of this, and she asks herself, why is he so different? Why didn't I see this guy before? You know what I mean? Where was this guy earlier? From what can this proceed, this change? And then she says, it cannot be for me. It can't be for my sake that his manners have softened. My reproofs at Hunsford could not work such a change as this. It's impossible that he should still love me. But I think that's exactly what it is. Don't you? He listened to what she told him, the criticisms of him that she levied his way, and he took those to heart. And he said, you know what? I do need to make some changes to my character. And I do. She says that it couldn't have been me that prompted this, but I think it was. What do you think?
I think it was too. I mean, and you're saying, well, this is who he is. I think that's right. But I think he realized that after she reproved him, his manners were not reflecting who he really was. And I think for Jane Austen, it's important that we be sincere, that we be authentic, but at the same time, you have to make an effort with people. You have to use good manners. And that's why I really like that. To me, a metaphor of this stream coming in front of the house where she says it's been enlarged, but not so much that it's artificial. And I think that's her ideal of good manners. You know, you enlarge yourself, you make an effort to care about other people, but at the same time, you shouldn't be artificial. You should be who you are, but not just, you know, the unconstrained, I'm going to do whatever I want, I'm going to say whatever I want. We have to discipline ourselves.
Yes.
We have to be who we are, but we also have to be the disciplined version of ourselves. And I think in a way, Darcy has had to learn that, you know, that he's got to expand himself. You know, he's got to make an effort to be friendly to people, even though he naturally is an introvert and this doesn't come natural to him to know what to ask and how to talk to people. But he's realized he needs to do that to be the best version of himself, to be the person that he actually is. You can't just always do what's most comfortable to you at that moment. And I think he's learned that.
Yes. And two things I want to mention here. You're exactly right. Not just to be who we are, but be who we were meant to be. You know, because if I just stay who I am, I'm not growing, you know, and I can be true to myself and grow and mature. And Darcy is doing that here. Okay. And then secondly, that's what good women do for men. They smooth out those rough edges and these beastly qualities that men have. They, I hate to use the word tame, but they do civilize men. Women do. Good women do. And they motivate a man to soften those edges, to correct those beastly qualities and become less of the beast. That's what the Beauty does. That's why Beauty and the Beast is such a good story, because it's true. It's true. It's a you know a archetypal telling of the Beauty turns the Beast into a civilized man, and this is what Elizabeth's influence on Darcy is showing. She's a good woman, and she's doing what God designed women to do, to come alongside the man and bring out help him become the man that God made him to be. And that's what good men do for women. They provide good influence on women too, and help them become the woman that God made her to be. And that's what Elizabeth is doing to Darcy here. This is what it looks like in the real world. You know, even this is a story. That's what fiction is. It's how you apply principles to the real world. And that's what Elizabeth is doing. Darcy is minimizing the beastly qualities. He's not becoming a puppy. He's still, you know, a man. but he's less beastly, more civilized, you know?
Mhm.
And I just really think that's what a good woman's influence on a man looks like. This is what it looks like here. And Jane Austen does a very good job of showing that dynamic at work.
And I love what you're saying about Beauty and the Beast and how it's an archetype of romantic relationships. But I mean, I think even stepping back, just a good friendship is going to work that way, that you bring out the best in each other.
Mm-hmm.
And you do have, I think it's in Proverbs, iron sharpens iron. And I think, your platonic friendships
Mm-hmm.
also work this way. It works in a special way in a marriage. I'm not married, but that's my understanding. But I mean, just any relationship that we have, that's a grace in that relationship, that we're going to bring things out of each other. And the love that you have for another person really does help to change them
That's why I can't
into what
stand
they're
it.
meant to be, not what you want them to be.
Right. Yeah, exactly. What they are meant to be. And I am not
Mm-hmm.
to mold Amanda into my image. She is to
Mm-hmm.
reflect the image of God. And I am to help her do that. I'm to be what she can't be, and I'm to be a man and provide what she can't. And she is to do the same for me. That's what I tell people in our church. Men and women, there's a lot of overlap between men and women. But then
Yeah.
there's also quite a bit of difference because men and women's brains just work differently. And
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with that. We have different jobs. They're both equally necessary, but we're designed to do different jobs, and that's fine. I used this example with Brooks one time. He likes watching Duck Dynasty, and Phil Robertson goes out and hunts an animal and brings it in. He likes doing that. And Miss Kay, his wife, she loves to cook. What good is having a cook if there's no food to cook? What good is having an
Yeah.
animal if there's nobody there to cook it? They're both equally important, but they're two totally different jobs. And that's what men and women do. We each have the way we impact each other, the way we relate to each other, and it's in totally different ways, but they're both equally valuable. And that's what I tell Brooks. You can't treat your sisters like they're boys because they're not.
Mm-hmm.
You can't
Yeah.
be, you can't, you can roughhouse with me. I'll roughhouse with you all day long, but you can't do that with Juliet. You can't do that with Scarlett. They're girls, and girls,
Right.
you can't expect Brooks to treat him like another girl because he's not. He's a boy. And that's why you've got to come together, whether you're brother and sister, whether you're husband and wife, whether you're friends. And that's why it's so important to surround yourself with people that compliment you. And I don't mean compliment you like, Evie, that's a nice shirt or your hair looks nice. I mean compliment with an E that fits together with you
Yeah.
and brings out the best in you.
Yeah, and I really like that example you brought out earlier. Like with women, if you know something bad about someone's character, it affects the way you think they look, and that's because, just generally speaking, women are more holistic thinkers.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Everything is connected, and where men are more compartmentalized
mm-hmm.
things. And there's a time and a place for both. Like one,
Yes.
I think you can get in some stereotypes that are wrong, like saying, well, women are emotional and men are rational. Well, that's wrong. I mean, there's
Right.
situations where a woman is seeing, more to the
The
perceiving
bigger
more the
picture.
whole, the bigger picture, whereas a man is seeing only the parts. And there's a time and a place where you need both, and that's why you've got to have that communication and the respect for each other, and not think, well, the way I see it is the correct way and this way is the wrong way. Well, they're both incomplete. You need to have them together, and that's just one example.
Oh yeah, and I think
Mm-hmm.
that Jane Austen, and that's to bring it back to this, she
Mm-hmm.
does an excellent job of what this looks like in real life. Obviously,
Yeah.
there's not a beast running around with the woman and the princess, but I mean that's an archetype. But this is what
Right.
that looks like in real life. Your beastly
Yeah.
qualities that all men are capable of, and he's changing that. His civility, his manners were, she was taken aback by how polite he was. And that's the beast turning into the prince. That's what it looks like in real life. And that's why fiction is so important, because it shows, it's like Ayn Rand said, if I want to learn something, I'm going to read nonfiction. But to see what principles and values, how they apply to the real world, how they are acted out in the real world, that's the benefit of fiction that nonfiction can't do. You can
Mm.
do that with fiction, though. And that's why stories aren't just stories for entertainment. You get something out of it. It shows you how to apply principles and values to the real world. And Jane Austen does an excellent job of that right here.
Yeah, and a story like this that, I've read it so many times, like probably every year of my life. It's as if it's part of my life experience, in a way, because you've imagined yourself in these different situations. You've
Mhm.
gone through sort of the emotions of what the characters are experiencing, and it's a way to get life experience that isn't your own. Like, you don't have to
Mhm.
make all of Lydia's mistakes to learn what there is to learn from that. And I think that is another thing we get out of stories, just being able to imagine ourselves in different situations. And it's like you're practicing what you would do if you were in that
Right,
situation, because
right.
you're kind of having the experience of being there without the dangers that come from actually experiencing the things. And I think that's really valuable. I think it's the way to, you don't want to rely too much on what you've learned from books and not from real life, but I think you can learn so much from other people's experience of real life that they've put in these stories.
And that's why, if you notice, a large majority of the Bible is narrative. A
That's right.
large majority. Abraham did this. Moses did this. Esther did this. Mary did
Mm-hmm.
this. Jesus did this. Because it's showing you people who have these principles in this way they live their life and how you live that out in the real world. And that's why narrative is so important. That's why it's such an effective learning tool. Jesus Christ taught in parables often for a reason. Now, did he exclusively teach in parables? No, not all the time. But if he wanted to highlight a point, what would Jesus do? He'd tell a story,
Mm-hmm.
because this is what it looks like in real life. It's not just a grocery list of things you should do. This is how you apply it. This is what it looks like. And that's why narrative is such an effective ethical tool.